update the rates, they are like a master plan.
The plan, identify projects,
Gotcha.
put construction costs with them.
Right.
They do need to calculate the pervious areas on our commercial properties.
Gotcha.
And
So Vanny was kind of doing the utility side of things, and then we showed up just to kind of help with the S4 side of things.
right.
Kind of how it's been.
Right.
Of course, I was poking across to try to do a little more of that for.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Vanny was done really good, and Rachel mentioned that, so we don't want to upset the apple cart.
No. I think we're for just continuity reasons.
Oh yeah, just keep things moving.
Right. So
And they've got all the history and experience there, So.
Yeah. And then Baker Tilly will take that, recommend a new rate. But I think I'm going to go ahead and I got Tom Pittman's with bond counsel. Go ahead and have him.
Tom.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Have him go ahead and give me a proposal to start a bond anticipation note, so that against the $4 rate, while we're putting in the rate we should have.
Sure.
And then
just so you got some capital to do something.
Right, because I got well, you'll see it if you're here for the presentation. I've got three major projects identified that we're probably a decade late getting to.
Well, that happens. I mean, I hate to say, you've been around for other communities, just don't quite get off dead center with projects, and then when there's no money and the problems get worse, as Jim sees in the field, you do what you can to fix them. But
what we should have done is followed right behind Fall Creek and before they paved the streets.
That would have been good timing.
Did they just pave mostly alleys
For
after they put in the sewers?
no, I think they did everything. Anything they tore up.
Yeah, anything
Just anything they tore out?
Yeah.
But some of the alleys they went down and they.
Hey guys.
How are you?
Yeah.
Good. How are you doing?
Hello, how are you?
Good.
You
How
can
are
take
you?
your name tag and sit wherever you want up there.
Oh, okay.
Oh, and I probably didn't open up your Google Drive.
Yeah, I'll have to in.
You two are like on multiple boards, and I always get
I could, you totally right. That's fine.
You do whatever you need to do. I'm not technologically savvy. So.
Jerry making it?
Jerry's online already.
Oh, awesome.
So everyone's here. And Kyle, we can get started when you're ready.
Yeah.
All right, 6 o'clock, we'll go ahead and call to order the August 4th, 2020 Pendleton Board of Stormwater Management. Do a roll call.
Sammy Thatcher.
Kyle Eichhorn.
Jerry, can you hear us?
We can't hear you. Are you on mute?
He is.
How about now?
Jerry, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Maybe my volume's not up. All right, can you hear us now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I know. I just don't hear him. Let's try this one.
I've got him loud and clear.
Hey, Jerry, can you try speaking again?
Yes. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
I can hear Jerry.
Okay, well, I'm just going to run down there.
No, it is coming up like he's talking. Jerry, we can't hear you if you can hear us.
I can hear you. I'm running down there.
Rachel, can you hear me?
Let me call him on the cell.
Okay. Oh, try again. Can you hear us?
No, I'm going to run down.
Okay, we can hear you, Jerry.
You can hear me?
Yep, it was something on my end, I think.
Can I just run down there?
Yeah.
If you want to.
I'll be there in a minute.
All right, thanks, Jerry.
See you in a minute.
Okay.
Yes.
But it's so entertaining.
I
All the things that have happened.
mean, oh, I know. That's great.
Oh, wow.
Actually, was right.
No, and I think that was, I don't know why it wasn't, we couldn't hear on this one. This one ended up, it was on mute. Ugh.
I'll go ahead and let's bring up this slide first.
Which one you want? The
Yeah, let's just start with this one.
stormwater projects plan?
No,
Or
no,
the
no,
other
no,
one?
yeah.
Kyler, are you back at work?
I've been working remote. I have a free con tomorrow, and I've got to go into the office and pick up friends and then head over. I'd say since March, I've been in full time.
Which firm are you at? I asked this one.
HWC. So we're down in the.
That's right, because I was trying to remember one of the guys.
Yeah, we're down. But yeah, worked out pretty well. Probably at maybe 30% of the staff is in at any one time.
Yeah.
Worked out well.
Yeah.
Which is my internet was a little faster.
Yeah.
What do you have out at your house?
But
Oh
Frontier.
my gosh.
when we first built, they said all they could give us was a voice. Well, and that's it. And then I guess subsequently we've got a bonded DSL, so I get about 15 megabits per second.
Bonded better, AT&T. They wouldn't do the bonded thing.
Oh, really? That's like
Up in LAT, they wouldn't do that. If you have DSL, you were stuck with the single. It wouldn't
Yeah.
do
I can
bonded.
tell when the kids are on Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Turn it off.
Hey, that's trying to work.
Are your girls going to school or are they doing?
Well, we started homeschool last year.
Oh, okay. I
So
didn't
it's
know
the
that.
second year of it.
Uh-huh.
Here.
Yeah.
No, you're fine.
We
Sorry
actually
on
heard
our
you
end.
All right, we'll resume here. So we have a quorum. You can sit down there. All right, so the minutes are on your drive if you haven't reviewed them, and then I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes approved. On to old business, stormwater user rate update.
Okay, so I thought what we do is sort of make this a sort of a working meeting since we've got a lot of expertise here and just go over some things. You know, I'm fairly new on the job, got a month under my belt now, and except for a couple of things, mostly scratching the surface, look at what needs to be addressed right away and what can we hold off. And so stormwater is a priority. The day one, we had the flooding. I think I told you about that last time. Talk about that, the line that runs between Pelton Avenue and Madison from between Main and Pelton Avenue that discharges into a legal drain at Madison and has a lot of flooding at Elm Street. And then all the way up to High Street too. So we found it was a plugged line. We at the manhole at Madison Avenue, found out that somebody had done something years ago and had, I forget what size pipe it was, 18-inch maybe, 20, 24, and had taken two 8-inch pipes. It crushed it, put two 8-inch pipes. So we were choking it. And then those two 8-inch pipes had collapsed themselves. So it was sealed drum tight. We broke open pipe about halfway between Elm and Madison and found it was more than 89, maybe 90% full of silt. It was old tile, probably put in when the railroad was put in. And so it's been flowing well. We hope it's been cleaning out that silt. Fall Creek Regional Waste District, Jerry's been out there. He was there, came to the rescue, helped us with it. We used our own forces to do that emergency fix. But it's a line we need to replace, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So that's an update on that. So what I've done this last month is identify the projects, looked at what GRW study in 2015, what they identified, and that study was used to establish the $4 rate that we have in ordinance, but we've never collected on it. I don't know. Are you aware that that's where we sit?
Yes.
It's been in for a few years.
Yeah. So, so we're getting that per council. We need to update that engineering study, and then quickly resend it through Baker Tilly, do another, have them do their financial analysis, and then we'll come up with a rate. And I'm going to recommend that somewhere in that new rate is somewhere in the ballpark of what we need to implement, instead of starting the $4 rate and then go to a different rate.
Make two different changes, you mean?
Yeah, instead of making two, just don't start with the 4, but wait until we know what the true rate should be based on today's dollars. So if you look at the chart here, this is just sort of the main steps in that I plan to use in the long range for the stormwater utility, with your input, of course, and modifications. So we'll do the rate study, do the engineering study update. That's going to cost about $50,000 from Banning to do. That also includes having some public hearings for people to come in and identify where they have problems. So that's a place to begin to find areas where we might not be aware of. Also to update the industrial areas. There was never anything done to calculate how many ERUs are in the commercial areas. There's about 300. It'll take about 100 man hours to do that using GIS. So about 3 an hour. So that's a big hunk of that 50,000. Then we'll go to Baker Tilly, do the rate study. We'll revise the stormwater fee, run that through the town council. In the meantime, I just talked to bond counsel, which is Tom Pittman for the town. I think you probably worked with him, if you know him. We can go ahead and do a bond anticipation note against the $4 rate, so that we can at least get some money so I can get some engineering started on the projects I'm about ready to talk about. And then once the new rate is in, then we'll issue a bond, and those will predominantly be used, of course, for construction. And then in that cycle, those projects get complete. My goal is the projects we're going to talk about all get completed by the end of next construction season. Then we continue to, of course, system maintenance, and then we start that cycle all over again, identifying projects. Of course, this part now, we're talking several years, a handful of years. You want to just keep updating what you have, and you have to update your fees, that sort of thing. So that's generally the cycle I see us using. Any thoughts on that? Perfectly welcome to tear it apart, add things. I have no ownership on it.
So how often do we need, I mean, the rate study and the fee, that's not an every year thing.
No.
5, 10
Right.
years.
Right. Additional, hopefully these projects we're going to talk about are major projects. And the system maintenance, I would include those as minor projects. Projects where we may use our own forces. In fact, Jim and I have decided, he doesn't know this yet, but I decided there was a little problem we saw. We may use our own forces and just experiment how good we are at fixing that stuff. I'm sure we're going to find some other things, but what I would call major projects, but maybe, sub-major or minor.
So the $4 fee or whatever it ends up being goes into a fund, and that's good for capital projects and for maintenance. It's
Yep.
all the same.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Some of that will be used for bonds. Some of it will just be the annual maintenance, salary, truck. I think we had to pay off the street sweeper. Comes out of that. Just the day-to-day utility things.
That makes sense. Makes sense.
Okay, if we could go to the next PowerPoint slide. Okay, don't let me forget. I want to ask you at the end if you know of any other minor or major flooding issues that we have. These are the three. There's actually a fourth one that was listed in the GRW study. But here's what I've got listed for that I'm working on now. That I'm going to use a bond anticipation note to get these projects started. One is the Water Street, which actually is under design, and that's just right over here. We're all familiar with the Water Street flooding. And also that project also included redoing the depot parking, which is right over here across from the park. That's been a problem for years. It's a collapsed line. You measure, it's our rain gauge. It's our town rain gauge right now. My joke, you can always tell how much rain we have by how deep the water is. Franklin Street, I'm thinking, and this is where I want your input, but we're thinking that could actually be a stormwater project. It's the street that got hit the hardest by the tornado. There's a storm line that runs down that. We could add curb and gutter, which is stormwater conveyance. And then what I'd like to start doing with our streets is always try and put in curb and gutter with ties or laterals that come off the stormwater to the property lines. Because as you all know, what is happening is since our storm and sanitary has been disconnected, and now with when Fall Creek came through and replaced a lot of the older lines in town, people had to disconnect their illegal hookups, sump pumps, gutters. Well, now all of a sudden they've got water like they've never had before, and they need to put it somewhere. Well, right now they're using their sump pump and pumping it out into the street. It's freezing, it's breaking up pavement. So what we need to do is when we put in a line, put in a gutter whenever we can, and run laterals to the property so they have something to hook up to, just like you would on a sewer system, right? So that slowly, inch by inch, we start to get rid of people discharging their stormwater into the street. And Franklin Street may be where we first do that. it's expensive. I may retreat on that a little bit and make that just a street project. Still contemplating that. The next one is the storm line that I talked about that collapsed. And then some county legal drain issues. So let's just go ahead to the next slide. I think it starts into the projects, a little bit more detail. So yeah, go.
Keep
Yeah.
going.
Okay, so no, this is good. So Water Street, it would be a storm line replacement and rerouting and reconstruction of the public parking lot. Design was almost complete until we looked at the plans when I came on board. We're going to change a couple of things. One is I think we need to replace the sidewalk. We need to add a sidewalk at the parking lot. And then if you look at Water Street, the curb is in terrible shape. The curbs are in terrible shape along that stretch. So I contemplate going back and adding new sidewalk and curb in that stretch where we're going to replace that sewer line. And that construction costs, right, I'm budgeting around $375,000, although construction costs are through the roof. What we may do on that is break that project up a little bit, and whoever wins the bid, we may say that they have a larger time frame for the depot parking lot, and maybe they'll give us a break on the bids because that gives them flexibility, and contractors like that. Because that depot parking lot would be a great filler job. And then we would fund it through the stormwater bond anticipation note, and of course the bond. And then we have an existing bond for the parking lot, would be non-stormwater monies, and that's how we would upgrade the parking lot. This is all preliminary, all right? I'm looking for input. Okay, so next project. Yeah.
On this one, the how far north does that go? Because at one point, we had a guy, Kevin Beiser, came in. He lives, I think, on Hollowell Drive, and he was talking about the water that's at his house when it rains, and that's just north of Water Street.
Yeah, that's off of Hollowell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm drawing a blank. Which one's Hollowell?
It's dead ends.
Dead ends.
ends.
Oh, into the railroad.
Where
track.
that line is
Oh, yeah.
going.
Is that the
That'll
one
be
we
a
were
new
talking about?
line.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, that's a good point. That's it, your string broke.
So I guess to that, do you have like preliminary plans that we
Yeah.
can look at?
Yeah, in fact, we could look at them right after this. Or I could bring them out.
I
You
can go
wanna
grab
get
them.
Yeah.
Are they still in your office?
Yep, they're sitting on that chair. Rachel just printed out some. Let's see. That's a good point. But maybe we ought to pick that up because what it does, the rerouting is we've got the line that runs down High Street. We'll run it, instead of running it to the east, we'll run it to the west, do a right turn at the old railroad tracks there at the park, and run it down there with Steve Wills on one side, the park on the other. And then run that down to and tie into something.
There's a catch basin right beside his property. That line's good to there to the,
North of his building.
yeah.
That project I'd like to also do re-engineer it so that we add laterals to pick up stuff along the way. What else about that? We do need to get an easement from Mr. Wills. I also want to add sidewalk in front of what we just took out at the park, and right there where the project is on the south side, all the way down to the apron of the apartments. That's all in terrible shape. I'd move on, but I'm waiting. I heard him making that Anybody have any other questions on that? We might be able to put that in this construction season.
I guess at the least, it'd be nice to size it to pick up any future areas that would drain there for future projects. So you're
Yeah,
sized appropriately.
yeah. Right. Did we ever, what was the true issue? Do we know where there was a collapse at the way it used to run?
The one between John and Steve there at Water Street.
Yeah, where did this line actually fail? You guys told me that.
Well, it goes down back to Hollowell, and I think it's like two small lines because it was limestone. You can't really get anything deeper. That was back even before I started here. And them lines feed back there, but you couldn't get anything deep enough to put any big line. And that's really what's probably Kevin's getting problems is with that line because it comes back there and then it kind of bottlenecks back in there. Is in them backyards, because I know at one time they was talking about, I know Mark Butler was talking about from Banny was keeping that line there for them, people, the homeowners could use to tie into it and then take all the other water down Water Street and then run with that new line that way.
Yeah, we couldn't make it work because if we went back east, they hit limestone. So
Yeah.
I mean, a very shallow depth.
That doesn't show anything.
Yeah,
What do
this
you
is the part, the existing design on the parking lot. Oh, yeah.
That was, yeah,
So what we're gonna do is just add a sidewalk here
okay.
because people come out of their car, this is the way they're gonna go anyway. Extend the sidewalk down to here. Maybe start to extend and then extend the sidewalk along this way. And then fix some curb and gutter for 2 of the blocks, and then the last block, everything looks in pretty good shape. Here is where it's coming through the park, Steve Will's property. That's a good idea. I look at that stuff where we can't, we easily solve another one. Here's what we need. Oh, well. It runs. Jimmy, you want to come up there? The cheaper way would have been to run down this way, but they didn't have enough fall. They hit limestone. So. What else do you want to do? So for my call here, I think we're only going to lose. But we're going to make these 2 handicap parking. We'll put an apron here with ballards. So if he does have a garage door here, so that he can, if he ever needs to get in and out, at least he'll have that accessibility. By the sidewalk along here. Improve the sidewalk here all the way up to there. Probably do some more. I don't know if we're doing something here, but the curb and gutter are really bad until you hit. All right, throw that in here. After that, it's better.
I'm sure you'll have the utilities located in here.
Yeah.
And there's a lateral for this building. This way, it's a lateral, it's not a main line, so it may not show up. And there's the clean out right
Oh, I wonder if that's what it is. I don't know, somebody else.
It's PVC, so it's not that old. It's different.
The other thing contemplated was because the pedestrian flow goes this way, if they want to go downtown, is to do something with this alley at least, pave it. Let down and pave it. I'd like to, there's a private sidewalk along here, right, along through here, yeah, along that.
Nameless, used to be Nameless Catering.
I guess you can skip a bit that's broke down and you can pick what you can do.
Mhm.
Yeah, because that one line came down like the back here and it got down to the catch basin here. And it would just bottleneck right here. And Kevin's like right in here. And it would just bottleneck because I know that A-frame, it kind of gets it too. But if we get that to go that way and then come down, because I know from that manhole that they want to go from where the line's good. From there on out, it's a pretty, I think it's like a 24, 30-inch line. It's pretty big. I'll have to rename Water Street. Okay. That's what everybody says. Kurt Call used to say, that's why it's named Water Street.
Okay.
Yep.
That's good. Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome. That came in handy.
Yeah, great timing.
Uh-huh.
You're so intuitive. Okay, if we go to the next one. So if we make it Franklin Street, which was hit by the tornado, we're going to go ahead in places. In fact, they've started the work already, I believe, right? Have we pulled out some slabs yet?
Yeah, they pulled out some.
So where the concrete is really heaved from trees when they fell over and pulled up asphalt and sidewalk, and where we've had totally pulled out the sidewalk, they're going through, and we're going to just, it'll only be for a year, but it's a real danger, and we owe it to them to go ahead and fix that, even though in the end we may end up tearing those patches of sidewalk out. It's only 100 feet in 3 places, and there's 2 ADA ramps we need to replace. But if we do full depth reconstruction, with the storm line in there, we'll go curb and gutter, we'll run laterals, like I said, and then we'll predominantly pay for it through stormwater. Or we may retreat based on how budgeting looks and the engineering update study from Manning. We may retreat and just go in and resurface it, put in all new sidewalks, and then not touch the storm line, and resurface, do the sidewalks without curb and gutter, and then plant the whole new trees that are all gone. That whole street is barren. If we do full depth reconstruction, we'll use, of course, the stormwater bond on that, except for the trees. We've got separate funds for that. Okay. Let's find out the next one.
I had a quick question.
Sure.
This kind of ties back to the stormwater fee, since we are looking at that when we were just talking about trees right here. Could we designate a portion of the stormwater fee to go towards tree planting projects in the town?
Yeah, what will happen is, the beautiful thing about it is that if we put in laterals to the property, then we have to replace the sidewalks and trees that get pulled out.
Mm-hmm.
So does that answer your question?
I think I was kind of looking more towards a pot of funds that, you know, a quarter of that 12 or whatever it ends up being. Right now it's $4. There was a quarter of that was then went to a certain fund just for tree planting projects that was kept safe that could be spent on. That's what I'm asking.
Well, I mean, if it's, I don't know,
Can we
gotta
keep
look
that
at
in mind?
it. Yes, we'll keep that in mind. Thank you. Okay, on the Pendleton Avenue Main Street project. So we're not in the street much except for in Elm and crossing Madison. So design is roughly 100,000, construction is 600,000. On that, for the storm line, we'll of course use stormwater bond, but on Elm Street, I'm going to use electric funds. They have a lot of money, and part of the problem is a handful of years ago, they put a pole right through the stormwater line. And then, you'll love this, Kyle. When the guys fixed it, they just went around the pole. So we've got a line that's like 45s to go around it, which is a huge no-no, and I'm sure it's plugged up tighter than a pickle jar. And then that, of course, that water backs up through the lumber yard and onto High Street. So I'm going to make them pay the price. And we have a lot of electrical funds. And so the reconstruction of Elm Street will use the electric department and save some stormwater money for another project.
So that'll be next, that will happen next.
Yeah, I want to have it designed through the winter and go for it. It was so bad at one point, I thought we were just going to have to build it, start ripping it out while we were designing it. But that one little fix seems to, at least the last rains, we have not had anybody have any
I've been
backup.
down there twice after the good rains, and that's not blowing out of that storm drain behind Lisa Floyd's. It's not, I mean, it's, and I've opened that drain a couple times, and I mean, it's flowing better than it was. I mean, there's something going through it now.
Yeah, they had 2-foot gushers
Yeah.
coming out of the yard drains. People were sandbagging on High Street. So it's pretty critical. Okay. Okay, we don't need to talk about the salt barn.
Okay.
But if we could go back to that first slide. The other thing is, my recommendation, the project slide, is that where the county legal drains come through the town is that we have an arrangement with the county. It would be a win-win where we take over the maintenance of the legal drains. And my thought within the town, because if we're spending all this money and we're putting it into a legal drain that we don't have control of and it's not working right, we spend a lot of money just to plug this all up further down the line. So I feel strongly that we ought to have an arrangement with the county and take that over. So I'd like to have your input on that. Also with the bond, because there's also some areas where we'll have legal drains and some, especially in the areas where there's farmers, they'll have a stormwater fee, plus they'll have a county drainage maintenance fee, right? So I feel strongly about also collecting the fee, not through the utility bills, but through the county property tax. There's a higher collection rate and some other reasons, and I just think that's a really good idea.
So if a drain is in Madison County and in town, we would take over just a portion of them in town? Or are we only taking the ones over that are wholly in city limits?
I would, if it comes through the town, then we would take care of the maintenance of it. Outside of that, when we start talking to the county, there's probably some places, natural points beyond the town limits where we would like to take the maintenance to, right? because it doesn't make sense that at this fictitious line that really doesn't exist on the real, in the physical world, all the town limits, why should we stop there when 600 feet, it may be where it runs into, where it dumps into something else. So we would take the maintenance all the way to that point.
How many county drains are we talking
Four off the top of my
That's
head.
what I'm thinking for.
Yeah. Part of the scope of work with banning is I want them to look at that and identify some problem areas. And during the public meeting, maybe some of those issues will come up. I know of one problem we have already, the legal drain, the McCarty drain that runs from the Pete Moss, it's the family's name, Phil Burns, 167, under the railroad tracks, goes underneath, goes through the AMVETs, underneath Broadway, and then goes through my dad's horse pasture, dumps into a pond there at Fall Creek, a Reformatory Road, and Pelham Avenue. And then they have a dam there, and they're supposed to keep that gate open so that water flows. And then it dumps eventually into Fall Creek. The line is collapsed in several places between that pond all the way to Phil Burns. And I think that would be a case where we probably need to jet it out at a minimum and replace some of it. But you've got severe flooding at the AMVETs. It's terrible. Have you ever seen that? It blocks Broadway. It blocks Broadway. It doesn't affect my property, but it's the people across the street and down next to the AMVETs. It's just sad. Whenever it's a heavy rain, they park their cars. They go ahead and put the planks from their sidewalk to their steps so they can get into the house. Of course, every member of the AMVETs is frustrated. So that's one case where we need to do the maintenance on the legal ground.
So would the property tax assessment go into a separate fund than the stormwater?
No, we would collect, by state law, if you want, if an entity comes to the county and says, we would like this fee collected, the stormwater fee collected through the property tax, then we would give them the data for each property, and then that would be assessed. It would be added to the property tax. So instead of, let's say the fee, for math, let's say the stormwater fee is $10 a month. So it'd be $120 a year, pay the property tax twice, so it'd be $60 each time. Then you would have some properties that are not taxed, like the school corporation, that sort of thing. We would have to do that off to the side.
But it would all go into one pot, because right now each drain has its own fund.
Oh, this is just for our stormwater
I'm
fee.
saying the county's collecting an assessment on property taxes now. So
For the county drain.
for the county drain
Right.
funds, would you still be collecting that amount?
Oh, would we bring, that's part of what we'd have to negotiate with the county. Yeah.
But that would all go into one pot.
Yeah, I mean, it would come to,
So if you want to repair a legal drain or a storm pipe in town, it all comes out of the same.
yeah, we would put it all in. That's a good, okay. Yep. Good question. Yep.
Because right now, if that particular drain's damaged and it doesn't have any money in its fund, then you can't do anything with it.
Right. Like the McCarty drain does not have any funds.
Yeah. I don't think any of them have that.
Right. There was a petition years ago and it was rejected. Now I think a lot of people in country farms regret that because now they're getting water when they've never had water before. I think that's some of the issue.
Would we expect the county to repair those places on that drain before we took it over?
Yeah. You know, that's a very good, that all, we'd have to work it out. But think about it, we can't dump our nice system that we're going to be creating into something that's junk because it's not maintained and we just wasted everybody's money. all we've done is create faster flooding. Right? More efficient flooding.
Well, I guess what's the time frame for meeting with the county surveyor or the drainage board, I guess, is in charge of it?
I think once the financial analysis is done, then we'll move forward because they're going to want to know.
It's really part of our drainage system.
Mhm. Yeah. So my question to everybody tonight is, do you have any other areas, just like Jerry suggested, Hollywell, is there any other areas that you know that people have approached you and said, we've got an issue? Sir, do you have one, or is that why you're here?
Phil Tooley, we talked about my property at 220. It would be on the, I guess that's supposed to be maybe minor flooding. Got major twice, but I would put mine in a minor category. That's more of the safety hazard when it freezes, nuisance in the summertime when I can't mow type of. So, yeah, it's not major like you're discussing here.
You're talking about where the water collects on High Street and freezes. And it's
Yeah,
also,
there's just a low spot there.
Yeah.
It just happens to be where my sump pump comes out.
right. And then the asphalt's breaking up a little bit.
Yeah.
It's about an area about like this.
Right now.
Yeah.
It was good a couple of years ago, so it's on its way.
Yeah. So that his property is an example where had we put a storm line down and before we reworked that street and then put in ties, laterals, and then Phil could have tied into that at his property line, his sump pump, his gutters, yard drains, and then it would never hit the street where it does damage and creates a safety problem.
Where's the nearest trunk line to this property?
On West Street.
It's about 150 feet to the west at the intersection of West Street and High Street.
Yeah, I guess we just need to collect these issues and put them on a map and that's how we decide from year to year what's the next one.
And part of Banny's engineering study will be 1 to 2 public hearings where we give people a chance to do that and they'll map it. Yeah, and then from that, that's the best. It's the best way because people know. You know, they know.
I guess I can mention the Rosa Drive drain.
Yeah. So we got Rosa Fry, McCarty, the Pendleton drain, and what's the fourth one?
Foster's
Foster's.
branch.
It's open. But that's the one that,
I think there's also a Pendleton
What about the,
drain.
Yeah, that's the one. That's where
that's the one at Madison, right?
yeah, where it dumps into it at Madison Avenue.
That's the one.
Isn't there a
the
Whitaker,
limestone culvert
too?
on Main Street, right there on the old factory property.
It's behind it.
Okay.
Isn't there a Whitaker?
It drains.
It goes out
That
under
sounds
the
right.
interstate.
Water flows underneath that.
Familiar.
Yeah,
Yeah, I used to play in that as a kid.
there's a Whitaker too, I think,
You
goes
did
out
too.
west. Scott, I think there's a Whitaker too that goes out west all along towards the west side of town, the interstate that way. I'm not sure exactly where it goes.
Mhm.
Calvin Whitaker, I think it is.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Well, that's all I had. Does anybody have any other areas? I mean, surely people come up to you or you just drive along and splash, you go splashing through.
There were at the beginning, but I think the one was resolved out at Foxborough.
Yeah,
That
was
was
taken
resolved.
out.
And then, wasn't there another one? Well, there was High Street.
The one-
There was 3 people that came at the very first meeting about issues, and one of them
Yeah,
was
it was
Foxborough. So that
Foxborough.
one's been resolved.
yeah, that one's been resolved.
Oh, that's
There was
right,
two
the lumberyard.
Lumberyard,
Yes,
yeah,
that's it,
lumberyard.
that's it.
project.
That's
Okay,
with that,
okay,
yeah.
we're good then. No, from when people came in, but I think
Yeah.
it would be good if
Yeah.
people came in.
Yeah.
So we knew.
So if you put a message out, come to the
The
complain
next
about
meeting.
your drainage.
We'll get plenty. We'll probably get plenty on Facebook too, so,
Yeah,
you know, that's
yeah.
another.
I think the political will has changed in the last 3 or 4 years. Everybody's, not only have our rain's been major, and, you know, I've heard the engineering standards instead of 100 years.
More intense now than it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
They're recommending that we look at those intensity design.
Yeah,
Wait till we get ours.
Right.
yeah.
Are we gonna go to 500-year storms?
I don't think that far, but they just said, look, you gotta reconsider the intensity rates. You know, if they're gonna be shorter spans and
Yeah.
more intense,
Yeah.
shorter rains,
Yeah.
and then longer droughts.
Right.
Strange. That's what the,
We do have some other issues, but they're developer related and outside of what we need to worry about within the utility. An example would be, another minor project would be Jim and his guys went out, there was a line that connects the 2 ponds at Country Farms, and it was just plugged up terribly. And it wasn't draining into the other pond, so the other pond was backing up and people were starting to have problems. And the main issue, there wasn't a screen at the discharge end of the higher pond.
This country farms have an HOA.
Good question.
Well, I don't,
That's a good question, because I don't know.
Kayla, the only thing she found was the front pond, anything on that they're responsible for just the pond maintenance is all that I seen from that she could find. Because they both kind of been tree related. Trees planted close to them and, you know, they're going for their water.
Any other questions?
That's all I have. Okay, so you guys are gonna be busy when all this stuff starts happening, because what'll happen? The public hearings will happen and then people will tell you all about it once they figure out you're on the board. And then once we start construction, just like when we pave, as soon as a street gets paved, everybody wants to know why their street didn't get paved. So once we start fixing a flooding problem here, somebody's gonna come up and go, why didn't you fix this one? Which is good, because that's how we find out.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any input from the public? Anybody online?
Nope.
All right, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did they close